This is English Literature Web. I am Prof.l.b.gayakawad talking on the salient features of Shakespearean age. The first discussion is that Shakespeare was the writer in the 16th century and he wrote his literature from 1558 to 1603. In the age of Elizabethan Queen, means this Shakespeare was present. It means he was writing his literature in the age of Elizabeth Queen, and he was writing his literature from 1558 to 1603, and it was the 16th century. He was the actor. This Shakespeare was the actor and the dramatist and also the poet. It means that he acted in the dramas, then he wrote the dramas, and then he wrote the poems for the theatre. It means that at first he was the actor, and because of that acting he became the dramatist and he wrote his dramas, and then he wrote the dramas only for the theatres. But actually this inspiration took him to write the poems also. So he also wrote the sonnets in his life. And he wrote for the theatre and the name of that theatre is Lord Chamberlain. Lord Chamberlain's Main is the name of that theatre in 1554, and Shakespeare wrote only for this theatre, and only for this theatre he became the actor and then the dramatist. He played the roles of old men, means this Shakespeare was playing his roles in the dramas, and actually he played the roles of old men and the ghosts, means he was acting as the ghost and he was acting as the old person. For example, we can say the ghost in As You Like It and Hamlet. So when we see this Shakespeare, then we see that this Shakespeare has rolled as the old person and as the ghost person. Ghost person means he has acted as a ghost person. For example, we have said As You Like It in the drama, As You Like It and Hamlet. No one has surpassed him. No one has surpassed him. It means that still there is no writer who has surpassed this Shakespeare. Surpassed means what? There is no any other writer who has crossed, who has defeated the literature of this Shakespeare. Means still Shakespeare is the king writer in the English literature, and that's why today also, to this modern period also, there is no other writer who will defeat this Shakespeare. And so the explanation is that no one has surpassed this Shakespeare as the poet and the playwright. It means that there is no poet like this Shakespeare and there is no dramatist like this Shakespeare, and that's why there is no person who is the dramatist or who can surpass or who can defeat or who can cross the limit of this Shakespeare. And still there is no actor and there is no poet on this earth who will defeat this Shakespeare. He was not educated like the university wits. It is very clear that there was the group of the writers, means there was the group of the professors, and these professors were there in the university, and these professors were called the university wits, And these professors were writing their literature and they were very educated. But this Shakespeare was not educated like this professors or like this university wits. He had only learned the grammar, where he had learned only the grammar, that is the education in school, at straight ford upon Avon, that is the name of his village. Means it is very surprising that this gentleman has not learned education like the university wits, like the professors, or like the educated persons. Means he was not more educated. Means he had only learned the grammar school, he had only learned the school knowledge, he had not learned like the educated persons. Means he was not more educated. He had learned only the education in the school of his village, and the name of that village is Stratford upon Avon. Then being versatile means what? This Shakespeare was versatile. Versatile means he was the man of talks, he was the man of good language, or he was God gifted. So versatile means he had all the corners of knowledge, means he was expert at everything. Means he was the God gifted gentleman, that he was writing his literature on goodness, badness, sadness, comicness. Means he was writing his literature on all the corners of life, and that is called that this gentleman was versatile. So being versatile, he surpassed the university wits also. Just we saw that he was not educated like the university wits. Means he was not educated like the professors who were working in those days in the universities. Means he was just like uneducated person. He had only got the education in the school of the village. But this Shakespeare, in such situation also, he surpassed, means he overtook. It means he crossed the limit of the university wits also. Means he defeated them also. Means the university wits also could not write the literature, the dramas like Shakespeare. And that is the salient features of Shakespeare's life. And again there were other writers in the period of this Shakespeare, and those writers also could not write like this Shakespeare, and that's why it is said that no writer or no university wit has surpassed this Shakespeare in writing the literature. That is the salient feature again of this Shakespeare's writing. He was the partner of the Globe Theatre. Means just we saw that this Shakespeare was acting in the dramas, and he was the actor, and then he became the playwright or dramatist. Why? Because he was the partner of the Globe Theatre. Because in those days there were the theatres only. Means there were no films, there were only the theatres. Means the actors were going from one place to the second place, and they were performing the dramas before the people. Means they were performing those dramas in the inns, means in the ground of the inns, hotels, like this I can say, or you can say, or we can understand like this. And that's why it was the age of the drama, and it was the age of the theatres, and that's why our Shakespeare was also the partner of the Globe Theatre. He retired and went to Stratford upon Avon in 1613. It means that he retired and went to Stratford upon Avon, which is the village name of Shakespeare, in 1613. Means in the age of 1613, He retired himself, means he left his literature, means he became old person and he went to his village, and the name of that village is Stratford upon Avon, and he went into his village, or he went to his village in 1613. Then the next salient feature of the Shakespearean age is that he was the romantic comedian. It means that this Shakespeare wrote his comedies. Comedies means he wrote the dramas, which are really comedies. Comedies means they were only interesting, funny, and he was creating such characters which were the clowns, which were the jokers, which were the laughing characters, and that's why he was writing comedies, and he was the romantic writer because he was showing their love, means he was showing the love matters, he was showing the lover and beloved, such type of atmosphere he was creating in his dramas, and that's why Shakespeare was the romantic comedian. Then he was the tragedian. Tragedian because Shakespeare is called the tragedian because he has written four world famous tragedies. Means he has written, I will say, King Lear, Macbeth, Othello, Hamlet. Means such type of world famous tragedy tragedies he has written, and these world famous tragedies he has written, and these tragedies have become very much famous in the world, and still also to this modern era there is no writer like him who will write the tragedy like this gentleman or like this Shakespeare. So this Shakespeare was the romantic comedian person, he was the tragedian person, and he was the sonneteers. Sonneteer means he had written the sonnets in those days, means still now he has written the poems which have been famous as his sonnets. Then this gentleman, means this Shakespeare wrote historically, means he has written his dramas historically, means he has written the histories in his dramas. Then he has written comically, means he has written his literature with comics or with comedy, that is called comically. And he has written tragically, means tragedies or sadness, tragic, pathetic atmosphere or sorrowful atmosphere he has shown in his dramas with the help of his characters, and that's why he has written tragically also. More than other writers, means in those days there were also other writers, they were also writing their literature, but this Shakespeare was writing his literature in a different way, that he was writing historically, he was writing comically, he was writing then tragically, but he was writing more differently or more nicely than other writers in his time. He wrote 38 dramas. In this way, Shakespeare wrote 38 dramas. 38 dramas means 30 plus 8 means 38 dramas. This Shakespeare wrote. That is also the salient feature of his literature of his age of Shakespeare. The famous comedies are, means the famous comedies of Shakespeare are A Midsummer Night's Dream, which is written between 1594 and 1906. Then second, his famous comedy is Twelfth Night. This comedy is written in 1602, and other comedies. Means this Shakespeare has written the comedies which have become really very popular, they have become very famous, very renowned or celebrated, and that's why this gentleman is the celebrated gentleman, and this celebrated gentleman has written the celebrated literature or dramas, comedies or tragedies. His famous tragedies are His famous tragedies are Hamlet, Othello, King Lear, Julius Caesar, Macbeth. So if we say about, or if you talk about Hamlet, then we will say that Hamlet is the character which has come into the dilemma which is called to be or not to be. Means this Hamlet looks the condition of his mother, that his mother is there in the arms of his uncle, and when he looks that situation, he becomes very confused, that my mother is like this, that my mother is doing like this. That was the question in the mind of this Hamlet, and because of this question, or because of this dilemma, this Hamlet came into the problem, and so he has called the famous line to be or not to be. And this famous line again has become the salient feature, and this famous line or sentence has made this Shakespeare very famous. And that's why the famous tragedies of Shakespeare are Hamlet, Othello, King Lear, and Julius Caesar, and the Macbeth also. His historical plays are, these gentlemen, means this Shakespeare has written the historical plays, and they are Henry IV, part first and part second. Means this gentleman has touched also the history of his time. Means he has studied the history also very nicely, and he has told us history but with imagination. Means he has talked some imaginative features there, and he has said us the historical matters with the help of the innovation. He wrote the problem plays also. This is also the next salient feature of Shakespeare or of Shakespearean age, that this Shakespeare has written the problem plays also. Problem plays means such type of plays which are called the problematic plays. Means Shakespeare has handled some plays there in this way that he has handled there some problems. Problems means, I will say, he has handled there some questions. Means there were many questions in the mind of this Shakespeare, and those problems or those questions he has handled in his plays, and that's why those plays have been called as the problem plays of Shakespeare. And problem plays is also the salient feature of this Shakespeare's age or this Shakespeare. So he wrote the problem plays or the bitter comedies. Now the point is that bitter comedies. Bitter means the comedies, but bitter. Bitter means these comedies are very biting comedies. Means these comedies are very touching comedies, or these comedies are punishing comedies. Means these comedies punish the characters. I will take here the example of Shylock, the Merchant of Venice. In the Merchant of Venice, he has described the best character, and that is of the Shylock. That Shylock is very shrewd. That is the moneylender. He gives money to Antonio, and then he demands Antonio the flesh of his body, and that thing becomes very interesting. And Portia tries, and Portia releases, I will say, Portia releases, or Portia frees or makes free this Antonio from the clutch or from the catch of this Shylock. And that's why very comically, or very I will say very with funny situation, or with very laughing, in a laughing way, this Shakespeare has written this comedy, but he has punished this Shylock finally, and that's why this comedy is called the bitter comedy, and that's why Shakespeare has written the bitter comedies also. And the examples are Measure for Measure and A Winter's Tale. These are the comedies which can be called as the bitter comedies. And then I said the example of Shylock also. Shakespeare's comedies are different from the early classical comedies. Means there were the comedies, early comedies. It means that there were the classical comedies, there were other writers, they were also writing their comedies, their dramas, but those dramas were also very different from this Shakespeare. It means that Shakespeare was very higher in writing his comedies than those classical writers also, or those classical playwrights also, or dramatists also. These are the special things, or these are the salient features of Shakespearean age, or Shakespeare himself. So Shakespeare's comedies are different from the early classical comedies. They end into happiness. The main salient feature of Shakespeare's comedy is that his comedy ends, means his comedy goes to finish, or his comedy ends with always happiness or ending problems. Means Shakespeare at first creates the problems in the comedy, but finally when he ends his comedy, all the problems are ended. Means no problem remains there at the end of the comedy there. Means when comedy is ended, we are very happy, because everywhere there is the happy atmosphere in that comedy, and we are also happy, readers are also happy, and that's why it is said that his comedies end into happiness, ending the problems. Imagination is the soul of these comedies. Now, Shakespeare has written his comedies, but Shakespeare was versatile, Shakespeare was God gifted, so that's why Shakespeare has taken his imagination in his comedies, and imagination is the soul of his comedies. Means without imagination there is no comedy of Shakespeare, and that's why imagination is the soul of his comedies. His classical comedies are satirical with love. Means he has written the comedies which are satirical also. Satirical means, I will say, he has shown some faults of society, he has shown some bad customs of society, some traditions of society which are bad in his eyes, and that's why he has shown those traditions or those customs, those rules and regulations of his time. And these rules and regulations he has shown, and that's why those comedies have become classical. Classical means they are very higher than other comedies, and that's why his classical comedies are satirical. Means he has satirized, or he has criticized the bad habits in the society, the bad manners in the society, and that's why his comedies are satirical but with love. Means he has handled the main theme of love in his all comedies. Means there is the love is there, so the effect of the satirical point is lessened there. Means there is no effect of the satiric matters. Means there is though Shakespeare has criticized the persons or the society, but when he goes to show the love, because of that love, the point of satirical things goes to finish. And in this way, this was the innovation, or this was the craftsmanship of the Shakespeare gentleman, and that's why his classical comedies are satirical with love. He surpasses other comedians easily, and because of these features, or because of these salient features, this Shakespeare, this gentleman, has surpassed other comedians easily. He writes comic, he writes poetic, and he writes idealistic. Means his all dialogues are ideal dialogues, his all dialogues are poetic dialogues, his all dialogues are comic dialogues. Means when we see his some heroines, uh, when we see Rosalind, the heroine Rosalind, when we see, she expresses her love in verse. Means he has shown her love in verse. Means she talks in the lines of poem. And that is the best type of salient feature of Shakespeare's comedy. And that's why he writes comic, poetic and idealistic dialogues in his comedies. That is the point. He has shown the surrounding also very nicely, because his comedies, his tragedies have been popular only because of his surroundings also. That is called, we can say, setting also. Means he has taken the setting of the forest of Arden, shores of Illyria and Athens, or Athens we can say. So these three things, when we see, or when we consider on these three things, then we can say that he has become very natural writer also, poet also, because in his dramas, poems, or in his comedies, he has shown the forest of Arden, shores of Illyria and Athens, or Athens. He has shown all these sittings show that he was the salient writer, and he was the specific writer, special writer, very miraculous writer of his time. And that's why we can say that he was very unique person, because his sitting was also unique. Means he writes only for entertainment. And the last and best salient feature of his writing or his literature is that he writes only for entertainment. Means Shakespeare was not giving a burden, he was not giving any kind of weightage, he was not giving any kind of tension to the readers. He was writing only for entertainment. Means he was writing only for entertainment and entertainment. So it was also the last but sweet salient feature of Shakespearean literature. So here we have seen today's first topic, or first part, salient features of Shakespearean age. So I will request you finally to like, share and subscribe my channel. Thank you very much.